Help me take a look at what's making headlines. Welcome to the show, Mr. Osido. Right. Now, we'll start off with a standard this morning. We're told how furious Uhuru told off DP allies. Now, tongue lashing is what they're saying transpired yesterday. The president dressed down Jubilee leaders led by Deputy President during a tense parliamentary group meeting where House Majority Leader Aden Duale survived a purge that threw out two Ruto allies from key leadership posts. Now, this is the angle that political story has been. This is the angle the Standard has taken as far as this political story is concerned. And on page 6, they go further into more details. When it comes to this, of course, it's a developing story. This is nothing new, but thus every day brings a new twist to this story. Mr. Osido, when you look at the way it has been covered in the Standard, what do you make of it?
Thank you so much. I believe that the writers of the Standard story more or less captured the tone and the mood of His Excellency the President.
Yes.
Because what I read from this is that actually three things. One, the President is coming out as the leader of the Jubilee Party.
Right.
And the leader of the government, that is the President. Number two, the President is stamping his foot and he's saying, I demand and expect respect from the people that I am leading and the people that are supposed to be helping me to achieve the third issue, which I see coming out, which is the Big Four agenda. And the President is also concerned about maybe his legacy, and he is saying that we cannot be able to achieve this, and Kenyans are expecting more from us, which we cannot be able to get given the kind of environment that we have seen Jubilee running and operating in for the last almost 4 years. So the President is coming out and saying, this is the party that I lead, and as a party leader, there are certain things that we have to do right. And one of those, I'm sure, is to set the pace for many things which he also spoke about during the Madaraka Day, for instance, the referendum and constitutional changes that are expected. So maybe the fourth issue that I read from the Standard story is that he's also setting the pace and he is more or less clearing the ground for that particular aspect.
Right, and when it comes to this, while Aden Duale did survive the purge that many had predicted would happen, we had blood spilled, as the Standard says, politically at least, whereby Benjamin Oshali, an ardent supporter and a Western leader, was replaced by Navajo lawmaker Emmanuel Wangwe. What do you make of those changes and this sort of discipline that is being meted out on people who are seen as dissidents in the party?
One is political party frameworks, and one of those is really to underscore the fact that political parties are institutions. And within that institution, there has to be a particular way in which things are done.
Right.
So much such that if, for instance, Jubilee has a constitution, that constitution is supposed to set clear how many times the party is supposed to meet. And it was quite surprising because a number of many years back, in fact, several months ago, parliamentarians from Jubilee have been asking for a parliamentary group.
Right.
And for a long time, I think it was just yesterday, that the meeting took place and took 30 minutes from what those who attended and what the stories that have been written out of that are saying.
Yes.
And so that really presents a number of issues and questions which we should also begin to ask around how we strengthen our political parties. But then that brings me to the second issue, which is decision making. It doesn't have to take the party leader to call for members of a particular party to make very strong decisions like what we saw happening. And that presents the third issue, Trix, which is the leadership of that political party. And I can imagine the amount of work that Mheshimiwa Duale did to be able to restore or retain his seat. I remember even his WhatsApp profile photo changed for some time, especially when news already began coming up that there are going to be changes in very crucial positions in Jubilee Party. And interesting to note is that my friends tell me that he also had a meeting before Madaraka Day with His Excellency the President and the Deputy President. And I can imagine the amount of quote-unquote begging that Mheshimiwa Duale was doing to His Excellency the President to prove the fact that he still needs him for the first four things which we said at the beginning of the segment, to be able to rally the people, to push the Jubilee agenda, and to ensure that he is a majority leader who is going to help the president to restore that respect which the president felt that was
seemingly
missing
has been
from
lost.
the party.
Yeah. So in the next segment, we shall be looking deeper into this developing story. The Standard has covered it in one way. The Daily Nation is looking at it in yet another way, how Ruto saved top ally from axe. Now, it will be quite interesting as we get more deeper into the details. But let's take a look at what other stories are making headlines. And right here, we're told how varsity college slots were shared. This is detailing how people, or rather students, are opting for certain courses and ignoring others. Now, the long wait for university and college placement for candidates who sat their end of secondary school exams last year finally over as they know their fate. Now, according to the Daily Nation, that's also covering this particular story, we're told that A-listers gobbled up medicine slots and some courses have no takers at all. Might have to do with its marketability, or what is perceived as marketability in the Kenyan spheres. What do you make of this one, Mr. Osida?
Yeah, this is quite critical, very, very critical, because I see a number of things. One is the relevance of the courses that we train in our institutions of higher learning.
For sure.
And you realize that in the drum-up towards the curriculum review, there was a lot of talk about STEM, that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Yes.
And it's not surprising that most of the courses that have been taken up actually relate towards the STEM programs.
Yeah.
And that really means that most of us young people, and of course students in institutions of higher learning, and right from primary school, we listen to our instructors. So if they say science is the best subject, if they say it's technology or engineering or mathematics, that's what we see most people going up to be able to take. But then the second issue that presents is how much that is going to be relevant in terms of producing skilled workforce for our economy. And that therefore means that when the government is also setting out its agenda, for instance, the Big Four agenda, that needs to be put in tandem with what is expected from our learning institution, because it would be quite obnoxious, in my view, to talk about universal healthcare, for instance, when we are not putting a lot of emphasis and resources on medicine and nursing and pharmacy and other related subjects or programs and courses. So this really is quite an interesting way of looking at it. Surprising to note is that agriculture is not as lucrative, and you read in page 5 programs with no applications, and most of them are have to do with agricultural courses, and the Egerton is really coming up so strongly at that, followed by other universities like Embu, Pwani, Kabianga, and others that basically train on agriculture. That therefore means that if agriculture is going to be what it has historically and perennially been touted to be, which is the backbone of our economy and of course the food basket, then it means that we also need to think through how do we tie the losing ends between agricultural courses, the institutions that provide these courses, and then the kind of policies that government is going to put in place. And much more fundamentally is how we make it much more exciting and lucrative to young people. And that means that even the place of research in agriculture, so that young people must not see agriculture from the perspective of hard work, hard labor. You have to go to the shamba, putting on gumboots and carrying big jembes and, pulling cows here and there, or working on very huge tractors. Because then that also presents the place of engineering and agriculture, so that then the people who have been trained on engineering also need to add value to the agricultural aspects. When that is done, Trix, I don't think Kenya will continue to deal with issues like food shortages and the kind of poverty that we see that is eating the bulk of the population.
Absolutely, and there's the element that the economy heavily depends on agriculture, and so this should be actually a priority as far as enticing the youth to take up these courses and be assets to the country as far as that is concerned. Joseph Keyoko, who's a governance consultant, is joining us. Joseph, what do you make of the story that we're being told here in the Daily Nation that as A-listers gobble up medicine slots, some courses have no takers, and agriculture, quite vital element in terms of our economy, is missing people or favorites in terms of those who would prefer to take it?
Good morning, Trix. Good morning, Kevin.
Uh,
I think the decision to pick courses is somehow influenced with the net result when you finish the course. In that, majority of the young people are looking at the course relevance not only today, but also 5, 4, 6 years from today when I'm done with the course, what it gets me back to. What do I get in return to this investment in the education that I've put? That is where you see the gaps that are existing. Secondly, and what is also critical, is the realignment of our education courses with the market demand. If today you are offering a course, I remember those days when we were in university, there used to be a course that was mechanical engineering, and which was by and large a very comprehensive and large course that covered so many things.
Yes.
When you look at the ongoing segregation, what is written in the paper, you see, I'm seeing some automotive technology, building construction.
Right.
This was subset within the mechanical engineering arena that have been subdivided and specialized into very small, minute units that make somebody comes out in a strip jacket kind of way. Thirdly, it is causes the university spread out. Yes, there was need to increase admissions. Therefore, universities were spread all over so that as many people as possible, because the minimum qualification entry into university is a C+.
Yes.
And truly anybody who gets a C+ and above must get to the university. And therefore, there was that need to spread out and get as many people as possible to do the requisite courses.
Yeah.
But again, how are the faculties in this university based? Do they have competent faculties to run the courses that are there?
Yes.
I'm seeing, for example, without casting aspersions to any one of the universities that have been listed, how the course of medicine and the Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery, which is a top notch, really very specialized,
Yes.
being spread out thoroughly, and you're seeing universities that you start questioning yourself. If my daughter had a choice of going through Nairobi University or some other university, and I don't want to, like I said, cast aspersions on them, the pressure is more Nairobi University because of history, a grounded faculty,
For sure.
as
And the
opposed to
facilities.
universities that are offering same course, and you don't know what's going to happen. Look at the law degree at Moi University. 3 years ago, the Institute of Kenya School of Law did put out a notice that they could not talk or speak properly about the quality of law studies and courses that are being offered by Moi University, and there was a standoff. Now, once the council, the School of Law issues such an aspersion into a university, all of a sudden tough questions come into, again, the question of content being delivered. Who are the teachers? What we call the faculty? Do they have the necessary experience to supervise undergrads? Do they have the necessary experience and qualification to supervise master's students? And what about the PhD courses that are being offered at those courses? Now, all of that must come into play when you're looking at the university thing.
Absolutely.
But radically, something that I would like to add about university, because I'm passionate about it,
Yeah.
is that we need to change our modalities of engagement. I think we need to get to a point where the Joint Admission Board gives me a letter
Right.
and says, Joseph Kioko, by virtue of getting a B-, you qualified to enter Nairobi University. Then when I go to the university, I make a choice. What degree do I want to pursue based on this, my B-?
Yes.
And then I pick the choice that I want to pursue. That way, JAB is not about picking for me my university. Joint Admission Board is not about picking for me my course. It's not even about where else, which campus I'm going to go to. You give me the admission, let me make those choices. And of course, there's cost implication.
Now,
Yeah, of course, there's cost implication.
yes, yes, for sure. But then at the same time, a very worrying set of statistics came out yesterday from the presser by the CS, because we are told that of some 57%, those candidates that were male, while 43% were female. And if you want to put that into better context, that means that 70,050 were the male candidates that joined university, while only 52,781 were female. Why is this still a problem right now in the country? I'll start with you, Mr. Osido, on this one.
One, in my view, would be the kind of attitude and the history that we have seen happening, in the sense that there are courses that have historically been seen to be male-oriented, because they more or less look very strong and, if I may say, difficult. Things like mathematics, things like sciences, whereas probably there are those courses that have been seen to be feminine, and so things like home science or, soft subjects.
But then if that were the case, then we'd see an equal number, just that a difference in who takes what based on gender, right?
Yes, which is why there has been a lot of reform in the education curriculum to be able to also boost through several affirmative action programs in education to boost the females to be able to uptake these subjects that have been seen to be male-friendly. But remember also that there has been a lot of programs towards female education that has focused on reasons why not so many ladies or females actually transcend from primary to secondary and even into university. And I know, because you are Kenyan and all of us are, that there has been a lot of talk between the boy child and the girl child. And a lot of that has been, a lot of investment has been put in place to ensure that the girl child from that pendulum is on a higher grade compared to the boy child. And so a lot of that investment has also been put into education, because really education is the future of a human being. And so when the ladies therefore move onto the next stage of learning and of life, they are coming up to be very strong. They are coming up to be people who can be able to acquire and competitively so come out to be seen to be competing with the men. And that really moves on even to the kind of jobs that we see women and men taking. Today, we can count as many female CEOs, for example, as you can imagine. And we can put that on a scale and compare how many female CEOs in Kenya we have against male CEOs. And the same is also very...
You would witness a disparity.
Yes, it's also witnessed at very high level decision-making platforms, even at the cabinet, where, for instance, the first thing we ask many times when the president names his cabinet is how many females are there. And you see, the president cannot put people in office who have no, sorry to say, brains, They have to be people who have expertise, they have to be people who are skilled, they have to be people who are knowledgeable around those specific subject areas. And that really is honed right from education level. And so just to go back to the question, is that what we are seeing happening here is that given the kind of affirmative action and reform processes that have taken place in both the political sphere, that is also evident in the education sector. And that's probably why we see education institutions also instilling that kind of aspect, even in the kind of grades and in the kind of courses that we see the females taking and also the males. And you notice that the difference is not that huge.
Well,
yes, of course it
is quite almost 20,000, because the women are at 52,000 plus, while the men are at 70,000. That's quite unfortunate in terms of
But if you look at the second scale, which is the TVETs, then the females are much more higher. Because then we assume that the essence of the TVETs is to be able to boost the gap, which is seen from the degree courses. And many times we have seen, for instance, the deputy president attending many graduation courses for the TVET courses, and most of them have been female-friendly courses. I forget what they are, but given the kind of numbers that we have here, the females are at 49,000, the males are at 35,000. But then that also presents what we are calling job market what really are we looking for from the job
I'd like
market?
to bring in Mr. Kyoko on this one. There is a disparity as far it would seem that women are swimming against the current when it comes to education still, even though we have made a lot of gains in terms of trying to achieve equality. Clearly from the numbers, this has not happened, particularly in education. Mr. Kyoko, what do you make of these numbers?
I think we need to appreciate that Rome was not built overnight, and that what we are seeing must be viewed in totality. What are the enrollment numbers from class 1, actually from the ECD point of view? How many parents have allowed the girl child to go to school vis-a-vis the boy child? When you trace it from ECD level, then you come to standard 1, and you look at the numbers up to standard 8, how many have transition? I know the Jubilee government said they did 100% transition rate. Every child who did KCP went to study secondary. If you look at the numbers, and at that point, the discrepancy starts building up.
Right.
The discrepancy starts building up at that point. Then you come to university, how many, and you look at this also from a societal point of view. The boy who impregnates a girl, and this might be classmates, and they've engaged in sex, and you find that a Form 3 boy who impregnates a Form 3 girl, that girl drops out of school, yet the Form 3 boy continues to sit for his examination. And you see, again, another gap starting to build up.
For sure.
So, yes, the numbers are, like you're saying, they are big. 18,000 is a big one, really. Yeah? But if you do a comparative analysis, going back 10 years, yeah, then you will see that the gap has systematically been chipped. And it goes on because we are addressing those issues. I believe the government is addressing the question of enrollment, making sure all children go to school. That's why the free primary education started. That is why the free secondary education is critically important.
Yes.
And even those of our girl child who get affected on account of societal pressures and are forced to drop out are encouraged to go back and do adult education. That way you address that shortfall. I think for me, 18,000 is bad, but is a better figure than when you compare to analysis 5 years ago.
We could do better, I think.
Yes, it can be improved. Should we seek to have it improved?
Yes.
A lot of civic education needs to go out
Right.
for those who deny the girl child the opportunity to learn. And not only go through the motions, because that's not what we are asking for.
Yeah.
We are asking for learning with the intention of letting that child grow up, pass, and build a sustainable ecosystem through a woman. And that must be seen for that, what it is.
Okay, so we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll have more discussions, particularly on the political developments that are happening in the Jubilee Party and in the country in general. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll have more for you right here on Morning Express.